Welcome back to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes from David Wells, who asked the question, who would win in a fight? Jason Voorhees versus Buffy Summers, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I'm going to look. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong on this. Anyone who did, in fact, do this, put your name in the comment section. I'll just alter the video description box at another point in time. But did anyone else give me the suggestion? I feel like someone else should, but as far as I could tell, I think as far as I can tell, it was just David who did. But I think the reason behind that is I get so many Jason Voorhees requests that I just assumed I did. Now because I've done Jason so many times on this, I'm basically just gonna do this a little different. I'm gonna go over Buffy's abilities, Buffy's capable of doing, and then I'm going to just go Jason to Jason. One other thing I should get out of the way right now, because I know people I've had more than one person get on my case for this. Not on my case, but I've just said, why aren't you doing this version? So apparently there is comic Jason Voorhees. And I don't mean like the comic that ties into Freddy versus Jason in the Evil Dead. No, where he becomes a Deadite and honestly therefore easier to kill, which is dumb. But apparently there is a comic version of Jason that people say is like incredibly overpowered. I've tried. I can't find any information on that version of Jason. That version of Jason. So if someone who is adamant about me using that version of Jason can put like a link to information on that version of Jason in the description, I would appreciate, or in the comment section. But until then, I'm not going to be using that version of Jason. The versions of Jason that I use, and man, version and Jason in the same sentence back to back repeatedly gets really slurred really fast. The versions of Jason I tend to use are basically Jason Goes to Hell, because that is the last, if we want to go canon version of Jason that continues a storyline from the original series of movies. That's the last version of Jason we have from that storyline. Freddy versus Jason, where he's pretty much just brought back to life as a zombie. Jason X, particularly Uber Jason, where he's essentially a cyborg who theoretically may have survived re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere. We'll get to each of their abilities overall. And then Human Jason, who is from the rebooted Friday the 13th. So, Buffy Summers. Buffy Summers is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, obviously. Now, as a Slayer, she's gifted with okay, let's just fix that up real quick. Because I already had the information up here just to be able to go over it real quick. She, as a Slayer, she is physically stronger, faster, more agile, has accelerated healing beyond that of a normal human. She's the Slayer reincarnated throughout time to be able to fight vampires who are naturally stronger than humans. Now, the extent to how physically powerful she is or how quick she is, it's hard to pinpoint because vampires in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe, quite frankly, aren't that strong compared to vampires in our media. They're above normal human strength, so they can manhandle your normal person. But we've seen normal people fight vampires and win before too in this world. So this isn't like Blade. This isn't this isn't even like Twilight, and that's saying something. Vampires are definitely dangerous, certainly, but they're not the same level of danger you might get in other continuity. That said, Buffy is still beyond normal physical combat, specifically for a girl her stature, which is, by the way, how tall is she? What's her status? Wow, they don't even give you like a height and age. Wow, this is dumb. I'm on the actual like Buffyverse wiki, so I should in theory have like all that stuff. They don't have they give a age. Yeah, they give her an age, but they don't give her a height and a weight, which is, I guess it's because that's never really been talked about, like how tall or how physically, what are her physical proportions, I guess is the best way to put that sentence. I guess that never comes up really. But that being said, physically, as a combatant, she is naturally proficient with virtually all forms of weaponry and unarmed combat. She normally carries around stakes, crosses. I don't think she normally has a firearm on her. But She's had years of additional combat and training in unarmed combat, as well as many martial arts, including, and I know there's a couple here that they list, particularly jujitsu and aikido, which aikido is used predominantly with weaponry, so it's a blend style. She lends more to improvised fighting approaches, though. Her insistence to go with the flow during fights was sometimes looked down upon by others who considered her technique to be too sloppy, but Buffy believed this gave her the upper hand. Even without her Slayer power, she retained her fighting skills and years of training, then temporarily stripped of her powers and the Supernatural Crisis Act. She was able to take out a human MMA fighter and defeat him. Now, let's be very clear. This is when MMA was still young, so MMA fighters today might be a different story, but still, she is very capable in terms of her physical combat. She has enhanced senses overall, capable of more or less seeing in the dark, fighting while blindfolded, enhanced hearing, senses, smell, taste. Psychic link with all her past selves, kind of like One for All or the Avatar state, if you will. Prophetic dreaming, which would play no factor in this fight whatsoever, unless she had a dream of Jason and went to go fight him. And she's extremely intelligent. Now, she has had other powers before. Specifically, she gained a lot of power like near the Twilight Empowerment, Twilight Crisis saga. Gained multiple new powers or strength, speed, but these are temporary boosts that we're quite frankly not going to use because that isn't Buffy overall. Those are temporary powers she's had. So we got to go look at Buffy as she stands. So as Buffy stands, how does she compare to all the Jasons? Well, let's break it down. She does have some mystical protection too, but that was a temporary. She does have some other powers too. Some mystical protection. Becoming the leader of the active Slayers, Xander commented that Buffy has some degree of mystical protection over them, at least while she slept. To that end, her protection meant even daggers split apart so as to not pierce her skin. Against Jason Goes to Hell Jason. That Jason we know in that continuity can only be killed by the blood of another Voorhees. Through a special dagger nonetheless. Now that's not to say because that's just in that universe. Someone with magical abilities or something like that couldn't just seal his soul up or just end him there. Or someone strong enough, doesn't have to eat his heart or something to help him possess him. So there is that, but we have to understand that this continuity Jason is the same, or this Jason is technically the same Jason we've seen through all the previous films. So when gauging his physical abilities, we have to gauge it by what we've seen Jason do throughout the rest of the series. So we've seen him embed a woman's face through straight metal. Which freaking Friday the 13th was that? It was like the 4th or 5th? No, it was like at that point Jason had come back to life. So it was like either the 6th or 7th one, something like that. We've seen him basically snap a guy in half like a pretzel. We've seen him literally punch a man's head clean off his body. And Jason Takes Manhattan, one of my favorite ones, by the way, just because of how stupid it is. We've seen him literally punch we've literally seen him squeeze a man's head just like that, like a grape. Punch his arm through people's bodies. Ultimately, this Jason is a physical powerhouse and durable. He can take a lot of beatings. Now, he can be blown up, and that kills him, technically. But he's still very dangerous. Problem is that almost every version of Jason has one major flaw, and that is he is very stealthy, by the way, but incredibly slow. Like, this Jason is just, oh, man. So, really, Buffy actually wouldn't have that much of a problem taking Jason Goes to Hell Jason down, because she's faster, she's physically stronger than a normal human, and that means she'd probably be able to actually dish legitimate damage out on him. Now, skewering him with a stake isn't going to do anything, but she could lure him in a way where she takes his machete away and then takes his head off, and then she walks away. Now, and because of what mystical protection she probably has, she probably wouldn't be inclined to try to consume a body part of Jason like his heart, so he could take his soul. Or so Jason would possess of her. Now, Jason would come back eventually. He'd probably possess like an animal or something like that. That would be fun, actually, to see a dog or I'm just thinking of a random animal now. See a beaver. Beaver Jason just gets the hockey mask over the beaver. He just grabs it in his teeth and he has the machete. It just goes. Technically speaking, there's nothing that says he can't possess an animal. So that Like a bear coming through. Oh, God, Jason has a bear. Can you imagine that? That's horrifying as shit. Or Jason fighting a bear. How come we never saw something like that? That would have been cool. I don't know. I digress. So, yeah, I actually think she can beat Jason Goes to Hell Jason. Zombie Jason from Freddy versus Jason. That Jason is a little bit different. We've seen how strong that we've seen him literally snap a bed in half, impale a guy on I think it was like a 15-foot pole, and just throw him like a freaking disc, like nothing. It was quite impressive. Plus, we see him just tank. Scuba tank straight to the chest. He was durable enough to survive being in Freddy's dream trap and still kept going. Yeah, his durability is off the charts. His strength is through the roof. But again, he suffers the same problem that any of the other Jasons do. He's pretty slow. Now, in close combat, he's actually not that slow in close combat. He's actually pretty quick. It's just for some reason his traveling speed is like non-existent for some reason. I don't know why he doesn't need to take his time. Maybe he realizes that he'll eventually just catch up to him at some way, or at some point, but I don't know. But so if Buffy met this Jason in a fight, I actually think she'd have a harder time with it because, again, we've seen in his fight with Freddy, who is much faster than Jason, just naturally, that close quarters wise, Jason is very fast in close quarters. Like when he's actually killing, like attacking you, he isn't slow, at least in terms of like his arm movements and his reaction speed. And he's strong enough to just punch someone literally across the room. So this Jason and Buffy met, who would in a fight? Well, she's clearly going to be the more skilled fighter among any of the versions of Jason. But the problem here is just going to be doing something that puts him down long enough to claim victory. The problem is she normally just carries a stake on her. Or if she's going to use improvised weaponry, that's fine. But this Jason, even if she could try to take his head off, but I don't know if she'll be able to do it in one go, or if Jason's going to just stop her from swinging, grab her arm, and just snap her arm. Now, physically, she might be able to at least go on par with him to some degree, but as we get to something like, especially once we get to Jason X, Uber Jason, there's certain levels of strength I just don't think she's capable of, at least in her standard form. Twilight form's a different thing, but we're not doing Twilight in this fight. So she might try to dish out the pain, but he can just absorb all that damage. Ultimately, it's going to come down to, can she take his head? That's going to be the kill shot. Taking his head off is going to be the thing that ends him. So can she get the machete out of his hand and take him out? I'm going to say yes. Because we don't see Jason guard a lot. Like, he doesn't put his guard up at all to try to stop someone. Like when Frey starts cutting him with his own machete, doesn't try to stop him. I mean, he does put his hand up after a while, but he doesn't try to stop him from blocking. So I think in that scenario, it is going to be Jason, or it is going to be Buffy who wins. Jason X. It's Jason X who wins. Uber Jason wins that fight. If we're talking about Uber Jason at his peak, like what we see him, the man could take gunshots, punch the android's head off, basically tore through the hull of a ship, survived the vacuum of space, and is implied to have maybe survived re-entry into a planet's atmosphere. Buffy can't do any of that. Buffy's not bulletproof. We've seen that. She got shot and nearly died. Buffy can't tear through the metal hull of a ship. Buffy can't survive re-entry into the planet's atmosphere. Buffy cannot take Uber Jason. She just cannot. Even with her physical enhancements. He gets one clean shot on her. She might not be dead, but she's not getting up. Or she's going to struggle to get up, and then he's just going to take her hand and just kind of, I don't know, either do the liquid nitrogen dump, or basically, again, put her face through the hull of the ship, tear her neck off, whatever he wants to do to her. Uber Jason is destroying Buffy. So that leaves us now with the final one. Now, right now, Buffy's got the lead. Can Jason tie this up? And the question is, or the answer is, maybe. Because now we're dealing with human Jason. Human Jason from the reboot is the one Jason that is saved from the speed deficit. Because we see this guy literally running down his opponents, coming down, just striking down with a machete. Like that was in the first scene of in the movie. And that's where you realize, oh, no, this is a different type of Jason. Oh, this Jason will hunt you down quick and fast. That said, like all the Jasons, he's still stealthy. Like he can still just almost like teleport. That said, Buffy has heightened senses, so I do think she'll be able to pick up on him um, before he has a chance to like really sneak up on her. But this Jason also carries a hunting knife, hatchet, hatchet, and obviously his trademark machete. And he has a crossbow on him too. So if these two met in combat, who would win? Now, this scenario would the other scenarios are just kind of wherever, probably in the woods, except for Jason X, where it's or on Camp Crystal Lake, or except for Jason X, where it'd probably be on the spacecraft. So why Buffy's in space? Who knows? But Buffy and vampires in space, which they've done that several times. Life Force, Dracula. They did a version where Coolio was in that movie, and he got killed, and he was turned into a vampire and killed by a pool cue. Anyway, so if this is taking place in the woods, Jason's got the home field advantage. He can be stealthy as hell. Now, Buffy's senses are keen enough that she could probably pick up on him where he might be, but that doesn't mean she could immediately dodge a crossbow. She might be able to do it, but she'd be like, it's like, that's a sudden quick reaction. Holy crap. It's like, holy crap. And she like maybe grabs it, maybe fires an arrow, but she's got to get out of the way. And then maybe throws the hatchet at her, and she barely gets out of the way of that. She grabs it, figures out where it pinpoints where he is, throws it at him, and he does have to take it. But he's such a huge dude that we saw he can take a lot of abuse and a lot of punishment. So like a hatchet to the chest would hurt him, sure, but as long as it's not hitting a vital organ like his heart, he can just pull it out. So then they face off, and the difference here is he flat out charges in with the machete in hand, just starts swiping at her. She's ducking and weaving. She's definitely like getting hits in. But I think the problem here is that the problem we see with Buffy with bigger opponents, larger opponents, is that it kind of shows where the limits of her strength actually are. With much larger individuals, the super strength, whatever level she has, is kind of mitigated. It's usually individuals that are more roughly her size, even if they are supernatural, that she can handle without too much trouble. But much larger individuals, even people, are more difficult for her to handle, and Jason would fall into that category. That's not to say now she still couldn't hurt him. She's still the better, superior fighter, and she still has a stake on her, so she can still stab him. But the problem is, if she even gets one stab in on him, that gives him an opportunity to grab her and possibly end her. So she's got to be really careful. Now, she's had many decades of experience fighting vampires. So, well, maybe not decades. She's had at least a decade's worth. She's had many years of fighting vampires. So, to be fair, she knows how to fight, and she knows how to strategize and fight on the fly. But the problem here is, without going in with a firm strategy against this guy, it could be her undoing. So, I do think if she gets a couple stabs, and Jason's going to make sure, no, you're not getting that stab in. So then she tries to get one more stab in, I think he'll let it happen and then grab her hand and then basically, try to put the machete down her. She stops it maybe with her other arm and holds him there. He drops the machete and, she maybe tries to get some distance, kick him away. He's still holding on. She grabs the machete, but he's got the hunting knife and just right in the chest, and then he just kind of twists it and then she kind of just drops down. And why would Buffy lose to human Jason where she can beat vampires most of the time? It stands by the fact that human Jason is first off much larger than she is, and again, like I said, we've seen her struggle with larger individuals. Also, he's got speed. He's the only Jason who actually is a fast mover and will literally rush in. So that's not an opponent that Buffy. We've seen her fight fast opponents. I don't think we've ever seen someone just rush in and just try to take her out, though. That's something I'm sure it's probably happened. It's been a long time since I watched any Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I did watch a lot of it, by the way. I didn't finish out the series, but I watched a lot of it. I think I got up to the point where she got resurrected. I think that's where I got to, basically. And I didn't even finish all of that. But, yeah, so we know she has trouble with larger individuals. We know Jason actually is fast, and possibly even faster than her, at least in terms of like a straight run. He's still got good reflexes, like most of these Jasons do. He's physically probably as strong as her, because her physical strength clearly has some limitations. If not, he's almost at her level. And he has multiple weapons on call, too. Excuse me. I got a little crap caught in there. He has multiple weapons: hunting knife, hatchet, machete, and even a crossbow that he can use in the fight. Whereas Buffy usually just carries a stake on her. Now, that's not to say she can't use her opponent's weapons. We've seen her multiple times in these scenarios do that. But I think the fact is, he knows he has a hunting knife. She doesn't, so he can, drop the machete, let her try to go for it, and then, pull out the knife and stab her. I think that's honestly, at least in my opinion, the most realistic looking experience, fight in that sense. So who ultimately wins this fight? Well, it's quite frankly, it's a draw. Now, if we want to play the tiebreaker one, we got to look at a comic version of Jason, which is the Deadite version of him, which is brought back by Freddy, who controls the Necronomicon, all that stuff. So when he got brought back as a Deadite, he was very powerful, but he has a clear-cut weakness, because Deadites, once you decapitate them, they're pretty much done. So, the question is, could Buffy take on Deadite Jason? I'll say this, I actually think she probably could, because at that point, he's not much different than a normal demon. He's just very powerful. And he has exploitable weaknesses at that point. So, I will say, and even though that Jason is technically just a continuation of the Freddy versus Jason, I still will say that, yeah, I think, and again, it's because becoming a Deadite actually gave off a whole bunch of new weaknesses to Jason, and the weaknesses that could be exploited. So I will say yes. Ultimately, Buffy gets the win slightly if we were to include that version of Jason. Now, if someone can give me some information on the actual comic version of Jason that I cannot find for some reason, maybe we can tie this back up at some point. But until then, my money's actually going on Buffy, just barely. And in fact, there's scenarios where each version of Jason could easily beat her. Let me put it this way. She's going to struggle harder to beat him than he is to beat her. But I still think she's going to get the majority in the fight she won. So that's the way I kind of see it. But what do you think? Do you think I'm completely off my rocker? Do you think Jason wins all of them whole-handedly and becomes the supreme ruler of the universe? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Now, ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Super Magic, what if, anything to do with the channel. Put that in the comments below as well. I'll get to that at some point. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.